Gene Park wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his small cargo ship through the asteroid field. The Lucky Star was old and creaky, but she had been his home for 5 years. Today was supposed to be simple. Just deliver medical supplies to the mining colony on Kepler 7 and collect his payment. Easy money. What Gene did not know was that the medicine he carried was not legally cleared for that sector. The Galactic Health Department had new rules about which planets could receive certain drugs. Gene had not gotten the message because his communication system was 3 years out of date. The patrol ship appeared out of nowhere. Its blue lights flashed in the darkness of space, and a voice crackled over Gene's radio. Cargo vessel, this is Confederation Patrol Unit 445. Stop your engines and prepare for boarding. Gene's heart sank. He knew his paperwork was not perfect, but he had never been in real trouble before. He cut the engines and waited. 20 minutes later, 4 alien officers floated into his cargo bay. The lead officer looked like a giant insect with golden armor. Her name tag read Commander Kesh. She scanned Jin's cargo hold with a device that beeped angrily. Illegal medical supplies, she announced. No proper permits. This is a violation of Galactic Trade Code 447B. Gene raised his hands. Look, I did not know about any new rules. I'm just trying to help people. These miners are sick and they need this medicine. Commander Kesh made notes on her tablet. That is not my problem, human. You are under arrest. The processing station was huge and busy. Hundreds of different alien species walked through the halls. Gene had never seen so many strange creatures in one place. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked like walking rocks. A bored-looking officer with blue skin sat behind a desk. His name tag said, Processing Clerk Zal. He looked at Gene like he was a piece of trash. Name, Zal said without looking up. Gene Park. Crime. Smuggling medical supplies without permits. Zal typed something into his computer. The screen flickered and showed an error message. Zal hit the screen with his hand. Stupid machine, he muttered. Always breaking down. Gene watched as Zal tried to input his information again. More error messages appeared. The computer system was clearly having problems. Sir, Gene said carefully, maybe I should wait until the system is working properly? No time, Zal snapped. I have 300 more prisoners to process today. Zal grabbed a form from a different stack on his desk. Gene could not read the alien writing, but he saw the form was red instead of yellow like the others. Zal filled it out quickly and stamped it with a large seal. Take this to Transport Bay 7, Zal said, handing Gene the form. Gene looked at the paper. The alien text meant nothing to him, but he noticed several words that looked important. One section was highlighted in bright red with what looked like warning symbols. What does this say? Gene asked. Just go to Transport Bay 7, Zal repeated, already working on the next case. Gene walked through the maze of corridors until he found Transport Bay 7. It was different from the other areas he had seen. Everything was white and sterile. Armed guards stood at every door. The other prisoners waiting here did not look like normal criminals. They were all heavily sedated and strapped to floating beds. A medical robot approached Gene. It spoke in a flat, electronic voice. Subject 7749X, please lie down on the transport bed. I think there has been a mistake, Gene said. I am just here for a minor smuggling charge. The robot scanned the form Gene carried. Records indicate you are classified as Extinction Class Threat. Immediate transport to Void Nexus authorized. Gene felt ice in his stomach. Extinction Class? What does that mean? You are considered capable of destroying entire star systems, the robot explained as it prepared a sedation needle. Standard protocol requires immediate containment. Gene tried to run, but the guards were faster. They held him down as the robot injected something into his arm. The world started to spin and blur. This is wrong, Gene mumbled as the drug took effect. I just wanted to help sick people. The last thing he saw was his form being scanned again. On the screen he could see his new classification: Reality Manipulator, Extreme Danger, Isolation Required. As Gene lost consciousness, he did not know that processing clerk Zal had grabbed the wrong form. The red paper was meant for a creature that had destroyed 17 planets. The yellow form for minor criminals lay forgotten under a stack of reports on Zal's messy desk. The transport ship carrying Gene launched into hyperspace, heading for the most secure prison in the galaxy. In the database, Gene Park the small-time smuggler had become Subject 7749X, one of the most dangerous beings in the universe. Nobody noticed the mistake. Gene opened his eyes to complete darkness. His head felt heavy and his mouth tasted like metal. He tried to sit up but his body felt strange, like he was floating. Slowly, his eyes got used to the dim light and he realized he was in a small room with walls that glowed faintly blue. The walls were not normal walls. They shimmered like water but felt solid when he touched them. Strange symbols moved across the surface, and Jean could feel energy humming through them. The room was barely big enough for him to lie down, with no windows and no door that he could see. A voice spoke from everywhere at once, making Jean jump. Subject 7749, X is now awake. Welcome to the Void Nexus, the most secure prison in the galaxy. I am the Sentinel, your warden. You have been classified as an extinction class threat and will remain in isolation for the rest of your existence. Jean pressed his hands against the glowing walls. There has been a mistake. I'm not dangerous. I just delivered medicine to sick people. Your file shows you have destroyed 17 star systems and killed billions of beings, the Sentinel replied calmly. You will not be released. Jean felt panic rising in his chest. That is not me. I have never hurt anyone. I drive a cargo ship. But the voice did not answer. Jean was alone again in the glowing box. Hours passed, or maybe days. Jean could not tell time in this place. He tried to sleep but the walls made a soft humming sound that never stopped. Sometimes he heard other sounds from far away, roars that shook the walls, crashes like thunder, and voices speaking in languages that hurt his ears. Then one day a new voice spoke. It was loud and deep, like the sound of an earthquake. Well, well, well. What do we have here? Jean looked through the glowing wall and saw something impossible. In the cell across from him was a creature made of living fire and rock. It was huge, bigger than Jin's whole ship, with eyes like burning stars. When it moved, bits of lava dripped from its body. I am Blaze, the creature said. I used to be a sun before they locked me up. What about you, little thing? What terrible crime did you commit? Jean pressed his face to the barrier. I think there was a mistake. I am human. I was arrested for smuggling medicine. Blaze laughed and the sound was like a volcano erupting. Human? Medicine? Oh, that is rich. The wardens have gone crazy. Other voices joined in the laughter. From cells Jean could not see came sounds of amusement from beings he could not imagine. A human in extinction block, cried a voice that sounded like 1,000 people talking at once. This is the best joke in a million years. What did you smuggle? Asked another voice that seemed to come from all directions. Weapons that could crack planets? Antibiotics, Jean said quietly. The laughter got louder. Jean felt his face turn red with embarrassment and fear. Over the next few days, Jean learned more about his neighbors. The creature made of fire and rock had been a star for billions of years. The voice that sounded like many people was something called the Collective. It used to be an entire civilization that had joined their minds together. The voice from all directions belonged to something that existed in 7 dimensions at the same time. There was also the Devourer, which had eaten 3 planets because it was hungry. The Shadow Walker could step between realities. The Mind Breaker could control thoughts across entire galaxies. So what is your power, little human? Asked the Collective one day. Can you destroy matter? Control time? Bend reality? Jean sat in his tiny cell, feeling smaller than ever. I can fly a cargo ship pretty well. And I am good at fixing engines. The silence that followed was worse than the laughter had been. You fix engines? Repeated Blaze slowly. Yes, Jean said. And I can cook decent noodles. And I know how to play guitar. This is not possible, said the Mind Breaker. No one gets sent to extinction block for playing guitar. Jean pressed his hands against the walls of his cell. I keep telling everyone there was a mistake, but no one listens. Mistakes do not happen here, said the Shadow Walker. The Sentinel never makes mistakes. If you are here, you belong here. But as the days passed, the other prisoners began to watch Jean more carefully. He did not rage against his cell like new prisoners usually did. He did not try to break free or plot revenge. He did not even seem to go crazy from the isolation. Instead, Jean did something none of them had seen before. He talked to them like they were normal people. He asked about their homes, their lives before prison, what they missed about freedom. And slowly, very slowly, the laughter stopped and something else began, something that had not existed in the Void Nexus for a very long time. Curiosity. Jean had been in his cell for 2 weeks when he noticed something. Every day at the same time, a small robot came to give him food. The robot always took the same path and always made the same beeping sounds. Jean watched carefully and saw a pattern. The food robot used air vents to move between cells. The vents were too small for the big aliens but maybe not too small for a human. Jean saved part of his daily food, a thick paste that tasted like cardboard but filled his stomach. When the robot left, Gene reached up and touched the vent cover. It was loose. After working at it for an hour, he managed to pull it off. The space inside was narrow and dark, but Gene could fit. He crawled forward slowly, following the path the robot had taken. Soon he heard voices from other cells. "Hello?" Gene called softly into the darkness. "What was that?" came Blaze's rumbling voice. "It is me, Gene. I am in the air system." "Impossible," said the collective. "The vents are sealed." "Not sealed," Gene replied. "Just hard to reach." Over the next few days, Gene explored more of the vent system. He learned which passages led to which cells. He found that sounds carried well through the metal tubes, and soon he was talking to prisoners all over the prison. This was when Gene started to really listen to their stories. The Devourer, who had eaten 3 planets, told Gene that those planets were already dying. A black hole was pulling them in, and the people living there were going to die slowly and painfully. The Devourer had eaten the planets quickly, ending their suffering. "But they called me a monster," the Devourer said sadly. "They said I was evil for trying to help." The collective had been millions of people who chose to join their minds together to solve a terrible disease. They saved their entire species, but other aliens were scared of them and called them dangerous. "We just wanted to share knowledge and help others," the collective explained. "But they saw us as a threat." Gene began to understand that most of his fellow prisoners were not the monsters everyone thought they were. They had been trying to help or protect themselves or save others. But the galaxy was afraid of them because they were different and powerful. Gene decided to do something that none of the guards or wardens had ever tried. He started a trading system. His daily food was different from what the other prisoners got. Gene learned that Blaze needed minerals to stay healthy, but his food did not have the right kind. The Shadow Walker needed pure water but got only recycled liquid. The Mind Breaker got food that was too solid for his energy-based body. Gene started trading. He gave his minerals to Blaze and got energy-rich liquid in return. He traded his water to Shadow Walker for knowledge about the prison layout. He shared his solid food with others who needed it and got information back. Soon, prisoners who had not talked to each other in hundreds of years were trading through Gene. He became like a bank, keeping track of who owed what to whom and making sure everyone was fair. But Gene's biggest success was something simpler. He listened. "Tell me about your home," Gene would say through the vents. Blaze told him about the planets that had orbited around him when he was a star. He described the life that had grown in his warm light and how proud he had felt watching civilizations develop. The collective shared memories of their homeworld, cities made of living crystal, music that could be felt instead of heard, art that changed based on the viewer's emotions. Even the scariest prisoners had stories that made Gene understand them better. The Mind Breaker had once been a healer who could fix broken thoughts. The Shadow Walker had protected her people by hiding them between realities during a war. "No one ever asked us about our homes before," the collective said one day. "The guards only see us as threats." "Everyone has a story," Gene replied. "Everyone was someone before they came here." Gene also began teaching them about Earth. He told them about rain and oceans, about music and movies, about his grandmother's garden and his first pet dog. He sang songs through the vents and told jokes that made even the scariest aliens laugh. The Sentinel watched all of this with confusion. Its sensors showed that stress levels throughout the prison were dropping. Prisoners who had been violent were becoming calm. The amount of energy needed to contain them was decreasing. "This is irregular," the Sentinel said to itself. "Subject 7749X is causing changes in the other prisoners." But the changes appeared to be positive. For the first time in centuries, the Void Nexus was becoming a place where beings talked to each other instead of just existing in isolation. Gene had created something that had never existed there before, a community. And he had done it with nothing but food, stories, and the simple act of treating everyone like they mattered. The alarm started at 3 in the morning, station time. Gene woke up to flashing red lights and a sound like screaming metal. His cell walls, which usually glowed soft blue, were now pulsing angry red. The Sentinel's voice crackled through the speakers, sounding different than usual. There was something like panic in the artificial voice. "Critical system failure detected. Quantum containment array is overloading. All life support systems are failing. Estimated time until total breakdown, 36 minutes. Gene felt his cell getting hotter. Through the vent system, he could hear the other prisoners shouting in fear and anger. "What does that mean?" Gene called through the vents. "It means we are all going to die," came Blaze's voice, and for the first time since Gene had known him, the star creature sounded afraid. "The containment systems keep us from breaking free," explained the Shadow Walker. But they also keep this prison in one piece. If they fail, the whole station will be torn apart by dimensional forces. Jean crawled through the vents to get closer to the other cells. The metal was getting hot under his hands, and the air tasted like burning electronics. Can anyone fix it? Jean asked. The quantum locks are beyond our reach, said the mindbreaker. Even if we could get out of our cells, the repair systems are in the core of the station. None of us can get there. But what if we work together? Jean said. Each of you has different abilities. Maybe together we can do something none of us can do alone. Impossible, growled the Devourer. We have been enemies for centuries. We do not work together. We have never tried, said the collective softly. Jean felt the station shake around them. Through the vents he could see sparks flying from damaged systems. They were running out of time. Listen to me, Jean said, his voice carrying through the vent system to every cell. Blaze, you understand energy better than anyone because you used to be a star. The cooling system is failing. Can you tell us how to balance the power flow? There was a pause. Then Blaze's voice came, thoughtful now instead of panicked. The thermal regulators need to be reset in sequence. But the calculations would be incredibly complex. Collective, you used to be millions of minds working together. Can you do the math? We could try, the collective replied. But we would need to know all possible outcomes. Shadow Walker, Jean continued, you can see across different dimensions. Can you look at the timelines where we succeed and tell us which path to take? You want me to scout the future? Shadow Walker asked, surprise in her voice. I want you to find us a way to live, Jean said simply. For a moment, there was silence except for the growing sound of alarms and failing systems. Then Shadow Walker spoke. I can see a path. It is narrow, but it exists. What happened next was something that had never occurred in the history of the Void Nexus. Ancient enemies began working together. Blaze used his knowledge of stellar mechanics to identify exactly which systems needed power and which ones were draining too much energy. His voice guided them through the complex energy flows that kept the prison stable. The collective took Blaze's information and began calculating. Millions of thoughts working as one, they processed data faster than any computer, finding the precise sequence of actions needed to rebalance the failing systems. Shadow Walker danced between dimensions, watching potential futures unfold and collapse. She called out warnings when they were about to make mistakes and showed them which choices led to success. The Mindbreaker reached into the prison's computer system with his thoughts, carefully adjusting settings that no physical hand could reach. Even the Devourer helped, using his ability to absorb energy to drain power from overloaded circuits before they exploded. And Jean did what humans do best. He coordinated. He translated between different types of consciousness. He kept everyone focused when they wanted to give up. He remembered which alien understood what, and he made sure everyone knew their part in the plan. Blaze, redirect power from Section 7 to Section 12, Jean called through the vents. Collective, calculate the new flow rates for the cooling system. Shadow Walker, check if this change makes our future better or worse. Mindbreaker, can you slow down the quantum decay in Generator 3? For 28 minutes, the most dangerous beings in the galaxy worked as a team. They had different bodies, different minds, different ways of thinking, but Jean helped them understand each other. When the alarms finally stopped and the red lights changed back to blue, there was a moment of perfect silence. Then the Sentinel spoke and there was something like wonder in its artificial voice. All systems are stable. Not only have you prevented the breakdown, but you have improved efficiency by 40%. This is unprecedented. Through the vent system, Jean heard something he had never heard before in the Void Nexus. Laughter. Not the cruel laughter from his first days, but the happy laughter of people who had worked together in one. We did it, whispered the collective. Together, added Shadow Walker. And for the first time in centuries, the prisoners of the Void Nexus felt something they thought they had lost forever. Hope. Inspector Kim Soo stepped off her transport ship and immediately knew something was wrong. The Void Nexus was supposed to be the most dangerous place in the galaxy, but the guards who met her were relaxed and actually smiling. Welcome to the Void Nexus, Inspector, said Captain Lee Min, the head of security. We are honored to have you here for the annual review. Kim Soo had inspected many prisons in her 20 years with the Galactic Confederation, but she had never seen guards who looked happy to be at work. Usually the staff at maximum security facilities were tense and frightened. How are the prisoners behaving? She asked as they walked through the corridors. Better than ever, Captain Lee replied. We have had 0 incidents for 3 months. The prisoners are actually helping us maintain the facility. Kim Soo stopped walking. Helping you? These are extinction-class threats. They should not be helping anyone. You should see for yourself, Captain Lee said, leading her to the monitoring room. The screens showed something Kim Soo had never seen before. In the recreation area that was usually empty, prisoners were gathered in groups, talking calmly. Some were sharing meals. Others appeared to be teaching each other different skills. Is that the Devourer of Worlds playing chess with the Mind Breaker? Kim Soo asked in disbelief. Yes. They have been friends for 2 months now. Kim Soo stared at the screens. On another monitor, she saw a creature made of living fire helping a shadow being fix a broken wall panel. In a third screen, dozens of different aliens were sitting in a circle, appearing to listen to someone in the center. Who is that in the middle? Kim Soo asked, pointing to a small figure she could not see clearly. Captain Lee's smile faltered. That would be Subject 7749X. There is something we need to tell you about him. An hour later, Kim Soo sat in the warden's office, staring at 2 different files. One showed Gene Park, a human cargo pilot arrested for minor smuggling. The other showed Subject 7749X, a reality-manipulating entity responsible for destroying 17 star systems. You put the wrong person in extinction-class containment, Kim Soo said slowly. Warden Park Jae nodded, his face pale with embarrassment. The computer system malfunctioned during processing. By the time we realized the mistake, Subject 7749X had already been in the prison for 4 months. 4 months, Kim Soo repeated. A normal human survived 4 months with the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Not just survived, the Sentinel interrupted, its voice coming from the speakers. He has achieved remarkable results. Crime within the facility has dropped to 0. Prisoner cooperation is at unprecedented levels. System efficiency has improved by 60%. Kim Soo looked back at the monitors. The small human was now showing a group of aliens how to play what looked like a simple card game. They were all laughing. I need to speak with him, Kim Soo said. They brought Jean to a secure meeting room. Kim Soo had expected to see a broken man, perhaps driven mad by months of impossible stress. Instead, Jean looked tired but calm. His eyes were clear and he smiled when he saw her. Hello, Jean said politely. I am Gene Park. I think there has been a mistake. Yes, there has been, Kim Soo replied. A very big mistake. But first, I need to understand something. How did you survive here? How did you turn the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy into this? Jean sat down across from her. I listened to them, he said simply. Everyone just needed someone to talk to. They were isolated for good reasons, Kim Soo pointed out. These beings have killed billions. Some of them have, Jean agreed. But most of them were just scared or misunderstood or trying to help in the only way they knew how. Blaze used to give light and warmth to entire civilizations. The collective saved their species from disease. Even the Devourer was trying to end suffering. Jean leaned forward. They are not monsters, Inspector. They are people who made mistakes or who were judged for being different. They just needed someone to see them as more than their worst moment. Kim Soo looked through the glass wall at the prison corridors. She could see aliens who had been bitter enemies for centuries now working together on some kind of art project. What do you want? She asked Jean. I want to stay, Jean said, surprising her. Not as a prisoner but as someone who can help. These beings have so much to offer the galaxy if someone just gives them a chance. 3 months later, the Void Nexus reopened as the galaxy's first rehabilitation center. Gene Park became its director, and his former fellow prisoners became teachers, counselors, and researchers. They used their unique abilities to help other inmates find better ways to solve problems. The Devourer learned to use his ability to consume energy to clean up environmental disasters. The collective became therapists helping beings with mental illness. Even the Mind Breaker found peace in using his abilities to help others heal from trauma. Gene kept his old cell as an office with a simple sign on the door, "Everyone deserves a second chance." And across the galaxy, crime rates began to drop as beings learned that understanding was more powerful than punishment.